We have a chock full, great training for you today. So we're going to get started. And before we do, I'm just going to do some general housekeeping. So welcome again to everybody. Our training will be recorded and will be stopped during the Q&A. And also today's training video and the resources shared will be posted to our website, as well as we'll be sending a follow-up email with the link to the training, as well as the resources and the slide deck for you as well. So no worries. If you have a question, please utilize our chat box that we have, and that could be a question on the information that was presented. And so if we have some time, we would love to be able to answer some of your questions at the end. And then also closed captioning is available, so please click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. So a little bit about the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance. If you are new to joining us, or if you are a repeat, thank you so much. So the Governor's Office of Federal Assistance, or OFA, we were created with the passage of Assembly Bill 445 in the 81st legislative session back in 2021. So we officially opened our doors on July 1st of 2022. And our vision is to support our stakeholders in obtaining, increasing, and maximizing federal assistance, as well as our mission is to reduce barriers by providing inclusive, collaborative, comprehensive, and centralized support in obtaining federal dollars for Nevada. And today's training is one of those efforts to help us fulfill our vision and our mission for you. Okay, and today our trainers are in-house and they're fantastic. Our OFA staff, Maida Sanchez, our executive grant analyst, and also Shayna Reinhardt, our other executive grant analyst, and they have put together a really fantastic training, and I'm so excited to get that started. And to kick us off, I believe it's going to be Maida. So Maida, welcome, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, yes, for joining us. It's always fantastic to see everyone here. One of our charges here, again, is maximizing effective federal funding here in the state of Nevada. And historically, the state of Nevada has faced quite a few challenges in securing those maximum levels of federal funding compared to other states. So part of this training that we are providing to you is to really create opportunities for us to build capacity at the local level with our non-federal agencies, our partners here in the state, to really serve Nevada and its needs, to really create this idea of grant portfolio management across the state, to really understand true costs of managing a federal award, how to effectively manage a federal award, and really breaking down those silos and creating collaboration. So this is just again, just to set the scene as we move into our learning objectives and goals. Thank you.
So let's go over today's learning objectives. It's like how to be grant ready. How to position your organization as a low-risk subrecipient. Monitoring expectations, reporting, audit prevention, and sustainability. So let's pick this right into what is grant readiness. Grant readiness is being prepared to take immediate advantage of a grant that fits your organization's objectives. This means having an active UEI or a unique entity identifier, state vendor number, a list of projects with scope of work, a need statement, and budget outline. So it's all ready to go, ready to be fleshed out to meet the grant requirements. You have your common grant application completed, and you have the buy-in from your manager, your board, your employees, and your fiscal and programmatic staff. Now, for every grant, you're going to need a UEI number. Don't worry, we're going to go over that in a moment. Excuse me. You can have a state vendor number. Now, this is required if you are applying for a state grant or state pass-through funding. It is how you get paid on a state pass-through funds. Okay, you're going to need a common grant application to identify your scope of work, to outline a budget, to have the resumes of the principals ready to go, and you have your financial management, internal controls, and risk management policies and procedures as described in 2 CFR subpart D. So your UEI, or your unique entity identifier, is a 12 alphanumeric ID number that's provided by SAM.gov. UEIs are used to identify organizations as eligible for federal grants, awards, and contracts. So anyone can look up your UEI to find out if your organization is active, if it's been suspended or debarred, your contact information, any entity exclusions, or active proceedings against your organization. Now on SAM.gov's homepage, you're going to click on Getting Started in the box on the right-hand side. Now there are 2 steps to getting started. There's getting your UEI number and registering. If you fully register, you're able to apply for grants as the prime. If you only get your UEI number, you are limited to being a subrecipient only. Now, all these resources that you see here, like the Getting Started, the FAQs, and the entity checklist, will be included in your slide deck and on your Q&A. Now, another really good useful thing is when you're trying to get your UEI number is the Federal Service Desk. These guys are highly responsive, and they can help you with any questions you may have. They're actually really friendly and very responsive. Now, your UEI is only active for 1 year. You are required to renew it annually, and to do that, you're going to go to sam.gov and click Renew Entity. Now, since it can take up to 30 to 45 days to process your renewal, we recommend you begin 90 days before your UEI expires. Now, you're also responsible for keeping your UEI updated. That's critical to maintain your ability to apply for grants as a subrecipient or a prime. And you need to update your account whenever you have like a new entity administrator, you have your point of contact changes, major financial information changes. Now, the link to how to renew and update your entity will be included in the slide deck you received and will be in the Q&A document we send after the webinar. Now, please remember, all these links will be included so that you don't have to scramble to write them down. We've got you covered on the back. Don't worry. Now, the state vendor number. You will need a state vendor registration number to get your funds when you apply as a subrecipient to a state agency. Now, to do this, you're going to go to the electronic vendor registration page on the controller's website. You're going to need to give them your legal business name, or your individual name, your mailing address, email address, phone number, organization type, and tax ID. Now, once you've submitted it, you're going to receive a confirmation email from DocuSign. You need to keep this for your records. Then you're going to need to allow up to 10 business days for a vendor number to be assigned. If the form you completed does not meet the requirements, they will send you an email notification about it. Now, if you have any questions, you can always go ahead and give them a call at 702-486-3895, or send an email. Now, once you have your UEI and your state vendor number, now we need to go ahead and figure out what we want to solve. So you're going to use this exercise to get clarity on what you want to do. So to do this 18-minute brainstorming exercise, you're going to need a timer, pen, and a blank sheet of paper. So what you're going to do is you're going to set the timer for 11 minutes. And during these 11 minutes, you're going to write down every issue your organization wants to solve. Don't worry about it being any form or whatever, just get it on the paper. It could be written in notes or shorthand, whatever, however it works for you. And when you're done with this in this 11 minutes, the time goes off, stop. Okay. Then you're going to write each issue on its own index card. And then you're going to set the timer for 7 minutes. And during that 7 minutes, you're going to prioritize the issues in order of impact on your community. Okay. So once you've done that, then you're going to staple the cards together so that the most pressing issue is on top. Now you have your grant application topics in order of priority. This exercise can be used whenever you need to get clarity on a topic. I know that professional authors use this technique to outline books, plot lines, chapters, and even book series. So once we know what the issues are, now we need to define them. So identifying issue is the what. We define the what the issue is in 2 paragraphs. In paragraph 1, you're going to describe what the issue you want funding to solve. Just 1 paragraph. It's just rough, okay? And in the second rough paragraph, you're going to describe the effects of the issue on the community that you serve. This kind of frames out what the issue is, the what, okay? These paragraphs are the rough summary you will use later when you find a grant that you want to apply for. Then you need to go to the why. The need is your why statement. It's why you need funding. Often issues are symptoms of a greater unmet social need. Sometimes to see the need, you need to treat the symptoms. In 1 to 2 paragraphs, you're going to write the causes of the issue from your organization's perspective. Okay, for example, you need a community garden because you live in a food desert. So you're going to describe the distance to a grocery store, delivery fees, the impacts on the demographics that you serve. This becomes the basis for your needs statement. The next thing is we need to sketch out the solution. This is how you are going to fix the problem you want funding for. In a paragraph or 2, you need to define your solution. Use SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound to explain what you want to do, how you want to do it, how you're going to measure its impact, or how you know your effects are working. This is the results is the basis for your scope of work. Now, we covered how to write the scope of work in more detail in our training called Grant Writing, Developing the Scope of Work and Budget. It's in our training video library. The next step is you will need to outline a preliminary budget. You need to actually draft two budgets. This is just what ifs, okay? They don't have to be down to the absolute detail. So the first one is going to be a Cadillac budget. This is where if you had all the money in the world to solve the issue, what would you put in it? The second one is your junker car budget. This is the absolute minimum you need to make an impact. Now, your final budget will be somewhere in the middle. And these drafts become the basis for your budget and your budget narrative. So again, all of these paragraphs are just rough. They're rough ideas, but they will save you a lot of time because you're just fleshing out the details. Then you need to go ahead and you need to rinse and repeat. For every problem that you outlined in the initial brainstorming session, you need to go through this exercise of defining the issue, defining the need, sketching the solution, and outlining a preliminary budget. When you have all the issues outlined, you know what to fund. This clarity helps you determine which grants fit your goals. But before you start your hunt for a grant, there is one more piece you need to prepare, and that's your common grant application. The common grant application contains the basics found in any grant application: the about us, the mission statement, your vision statement, the principles and their roles, your past experiences, testimonials you may have, effectiveness examples. Now, this template will also be sent to you later this week. Once the common grant application is done, you are ready to search for funding. Now, for grant discovery tips and tricks, we also did a webinar on that in our video training library. So please take advantage of that video training library. But before you apply for a grant, you need to get the buy-in of all those who would be involved in the grant. This includes your boards and or administrators, your fiscal staff, your programmatic staff, or the people that are actually executing the program, any potential partners. Now, we talk about this all the time, is that successful grants have their fiscal team and their programmatic teams on the same page from the get-go. This way, everybody's talking the same language, so it's really smooth. Now, the advantages of advanced buy-in include the fact that your higher-ups are not surprised. Your internal approval time is lessened or eliminated, and people know it's coming so they can better manage their time. Now that you have all the pieces of each solution you want to provide, you can put them together in your grant application. Now, being prepared allows you to move faster on grants with short application windows. So some windows are only 4 weeks long. Some take time. If being prepared allows you to take more time to review your grant application for completeness because the basic work was already done. And it allows you to have more confidence to apply because you know that the basics have already been done. And any advantage that you can give yourself when you're getting ready to apply for a grant is a good thing to do. Now, before you commit to any grant, do a grant fit check to make sure that the grant will work for you. We have a form that's included. The link is on your slide, and it'll also be included with the slide deck. Now, the grant, it's always beneficial to check to see if the grant is a good fit for your organization. So you can ask them these questions like, does the grant fit your current priorities, your needs, your mission, your vision, or your goals? Do you have existing relationships that can help with the grant? Do you have any previous relationships or connections with the funder? Can you meet the grant application deadline? Are the grant-related activities manageable? Now, again, you can download it, but it's also available on our website. So, with that preliminary thought in mind, the first poll question is, where would you rate your grant readiness? Would you say A, not at all? B, I have an active UEI number, but that's it. I'm about midway there. I only need to get buy-in, or I'm ready, bring it on. So let me know how that goes. How we doing on that, Anna?
Doing well. It looks like around 50% is ready and wants you to bring it on.
Oh, right on. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about risk and risk management. Risk is an event that has a potentially negative impact, the possibility that such an event will occur and adversely affect your assets, your activities, your operations, your reputation. Now, risk management is the continuous process of assessing risks, reducing that potential for it to occur, and to take steps to deal with any events that have occurred. Your risk level determines your monitoring experience. Think of your risk level like a credit score. It tells the funder the likelihood of you completing your commitments on time with the proper paperwork and how well you keep in touch with the funder. The lower the risk, the more desirable your organization is, and the less monitoring you have to do. Now, we covered risk and risk management in detail in a previous webinar, and it's also available on our website. The link will be included with this slide deck. Now, how do you position your organization as a low risk recipient? Well, low risk recipients have internal controls that are updated biannually, are part of a new employee's onboarding work, and all employees receive annual training on it. The policies and procedures are written and enforced. You have a conflict of interest policy. You have a whistleblower policy. You have resolved any previous audit findings. Your procurement procedures are written and enforced. And you do a biannual risk assessment to make sure your policies are up to date, are being enforced, and are working to avoid any audit findings. And don't forget to have a culture of fiscal responsibility and frugality with the grant funds. For example, you may have gotten a really big federal grant, and you're looking at, I need a notebook. Instead of buying the $12 fancy looking notebook, get the $2 one so that you can save that $10 for actual programmatic work. Okay. Funders are looking for fiscally and ethically sound partners who have the administration and fiscal parts so fine-tuned that the majority of their time is spent on how to affect the positive change. So failing to plan is planning to fail. The single most effective strategy of grant management is creating an achievable grant execution plan and sticking to it. Successful grants have that SMART goals. That's that specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-based. So these goals are where like roles are specific and clearly spelled out. You have aces in your places, meaning you've assigned the best person for the task. This person needs to be responsive, diligent, and deliver relevant results on time. You have duties and tasks with due dates, and that also leave time for the team lead to review the results. You have timelines that are clearly spelled out with clear consequences for failure. Results are achievable and measurable. And if a team member is not carrying the weight, don't be afraid to switch them out for someone who will. Another part of risk management is planning for what if. Now, we know that change is the only constant. In creating your risk mitigation strategies, you need to account for change. Typical change can include things like employee turnover or employee resistance. Resistance are obstacles to the program goals. You have programmatic changes and pivots, unanticipated delays like supply chain issues, budget issues, internal control failures, that type of thing. Now, we go into detail on risk management and mitigation in a different webinar that's also located on our training video library. Okay. Now, internal controls, we have to talk about this just a little bit here. Internal controls, the major areas of internal controls include control environments. That's organizational structure, discipline, protocols, management operation styles, expectations of upper management, okay? Risk and risk assessments, the process where areas of potential weaknesses are identified. Common areas of high risk include cash handling, travel, and purchasing. That's where most of the fraud is located, okay? You have control activities, which include written internal policies and procedures, annual internal controls training, security measures, compensating controls like how to fix an oops, outsourcing and segregation of duties. You have information and communication. That's the flow of communication within your organization. And things like, does everyone have access to the important documentation? You have a monitoring piece to that. That's the physical and virtual oversight, your self-audits, reporting, documentation standards, record maintenance, and timely reconciliation of accounts. Now, the best practice is to include internal controls training in your new employee onboarding procedure and to refresh that training annually. We cannot say this enough. Trust is not an internal control. We all want to trust everybody we work with, but it's better to trust but verify, okay? Now, the deep dive on internal controls is also located in our video training library, and I highly recommend you take a look at that because it is a nuts and bolts how to do it. So what about internal control failures? An internal control failure is when internal controls are when internal control failures. I'm sorry, I'm having one of those days today. I apologize. Internal control failures are when internal controls are not followed and leave your organization at risk for things like increased monitoring. That's more frequent and more in-depth monitoring, more reporting to write, desk audits and site visits, where the funder visits you to review the paperwork on site. All issues in which case then they give you all issues are presented to you in a corrective action plan. In a correction action plan, you have to immediately correct a list of issues with details that need to be addressed. You could face recension of funds, the return of all funds that have not been accurately accounted for. You could get suspended. Your organization is under investigation by the Federal Inspector General's office. Okay. If it gets worse, you can deal with disbarment. This is where your organization is barred from applying for federal grants for 5 years, and possible, more likely probable, criminal charges will be filed, or prosecution, where your organization, your leadership, and board of directors are reported to the Inspector General's office for investigation and prosecution. Common failures result in fraud, stolen supplies, stolen equipment, embezzlement, lost paperwork, and a loss of credibility. In the worst case scenario, serious and unremediated failures are reported to the Inspector General's office for investigation, prosecution, and convicted. And if convicted, federal prison time. So let's go to the next full question, which is, what do you think your risk assessment score is? Is it low risk? We got this nailed. You've got medium risk, working out the kinks, but improving. High risk, we have work to do. Or I don't know. So Anna, how are we doing on this?
We have around 40% coming in with medium risk, but it's changing right now. 40% is now low risk.
Right on. So, right on. Maida.
Awesome. So thank you, Shayna. All of that wonderful information. So we're just going to unpack monitoring just a little bit here for everyone on the call. So what exactly is that monitoring, and piggybacking off of what Shayna was discussing, it is that systematic and continuous assessment of your organization or your project's performance, your compliance, effectiveness in achieving those objectives that you've outlined. The purpose is really to ensure, again, that you as a subrecipient are using those funds appropriately and meeting project goals while also complying with any of those federal regulations and grant terms and conditions. If you're being subawarded by a state agency, whatever state stipulations or regulations are also included in that subaward to you. So there are different types of monitoring. What we are most commonly familiar with are those desk reviews, which is just an examination of those reports and documents submitted by a subrecipient. You can also have on-site visits. On-site visits aren't always directly related because you are high risk, but are sometimes part of the monitoring that is provided. In those on-site visits are, again, that direct inspection of a project's activities, sometimes the facilities, the physical records, where records are being stored, etc. And then we have those audits, which are a bit more formal examination of financial records for compliance. And some of us are familiar with those, where they come in and they do that. It's maybe a week of an audit and they come to your agency. So why do we monitor? So monitoring is done for a few different reasons. Monitoring is done for accountability. We really want to be able to demonstrate our ability as managers of federal funding and our commitment to using those grant funds responsibly. And again, that we're using those funds the way that we said that we're going to use them to achieve those project objectives. Monitoring is done also for transparency. We really want to build trust with our prime recipient and our federal agencies by really demonstrating that we operate openly and honestly. So it provides opportunity for continuous improvement. So to identify areas where there is maybe room to change something, pivot, to improve, or to enhance our program effectiveness. And again, it is part of that risk management process, much as to what Shayna was explaining. It really helps us identify and mitigate any potential risks, anything that might happen. So again, anything that could impact our project success, and also any risks of non-compliance. We want to make sure our internal controls and everything's moving along smoothly and everything's going well. So what exactly are the expectations as a subrecipient during the monitoring? So it's really important to be very responsive. Um, Always keeping those lines of communication open. You want to answer questions and provide requested documentation promptly. If you have questions or need clarification as to what needs to be provided, ask those questions. You want to be transparent with the team that is conducting the monitoring. You want to share honest and accurate information about project progress and challenges. They're there to help you. They're not there to kind of grade you in a sense. They're there to help you so that you are successful, because your success is their success at the end of the day when we're managing these federal funds. So it's important to be collaborative, to really work with the monitoring team and staff to really address any issues or concerns, request technical assistance, ask for that support in that space. Again, to help us all kind of meet those big goals. So how can you prepare? So looking, and these are again all pieces of what we're talking about, internal controls and policies and procedures. You want to organize your documentation. You want to keep everything, all your grant related documents, well organized, easily accessible. Have a filing system that everyone understands. You want to keep your contracts in one place, your financial reports and progress reports, and just have a filing system that makes sense for your team and that someone can inherit just in case you get hit by a bus, as I say. You want to ensure all your documentation is also up to date, that it's accurate. You want to become familiar with the regulations, review the compliance requirements and understand the federal regulations, your grant terms, read, right? And conditions. You need to read that subaward and understand what's being expected. So ensure that your organization's policies and procedures align with those state and federal requirements. The internal audits. So in kind of a more informal, but still conducting those internal regular checks, those reviews to identify and address any potential issues that you may have or concerns that you may have within your organization before you have any type of external monitoring or auditing. So you want to catch it and check it prior to someone else catching it and telling you need to fix it. And part of that is really training your staff. You want to make sure that everyone on your team within your organization really understands their roles. There's a designation of duties and responsibilities as it relates to grant management and compliance, so that there's little room up for guessing, so people aren't filling in the gaps and making mistakes. So areas of focus during monitoring. So what you'll find more, during subrecipient monitoring is that your prime recipient or your pass-through entity will usually look at several key areas to really ensure compliance. They usually have a checklist that they provide to you. The areas that they normally look at are fiscal internal controls, procurement processes, programmatic capacity, outcomes, and just overall compliance. Um, Effective monitoring, when done well, really ensures that as a subrecipient, we're managing our grant funds well. Again, that we're doing it responsibly and that we're achieving those project goals and that we're complying again with regulatory requirements. We're not breaking the law. So regular monitoring also helps us again identify those areas that may need improvement and how, as a pass-through entity, they can support us in our overall success and again sustainability of our grant funded programs. So just looking at financial management systems, again, they want to make sure that you're properly tracking and accounting for grant funds. And again, using your internal controls to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. Procurement processes. Make sure you have your policies and procedures up to date. The idea is to, again, ensure a fair and open competition and verification of transactions for compliance. So they want to make sure that you are conducting those procurement contracts in a way that is in compliance with state and federal law. Staff qualification and experience, again, ability and capacity of those that are managing the grant to really implement the grant funded project and to do it well. Project management to make sure that you're on time, you're ensuring that your timeline are being met, there's efficient execution of project activities, everything's kind of moving along at the pace that you said that it would move along. Performance metrics, again, speaking about SMART goals, reviewing those performance and assessments of how those methods or how that performance is being measured and how that's being reported. Reviewing impact, right? So overall impact of the project on the target population or issue. And then the regulatory piece, again, that you're adhering to federal regulations and that you're reporting on time, your reports are accurate, and that documentation that supports that reporting is also being provided to that pass-through entity. So let's say you do get monitored and something does come up, how do you respond to findings and recommendations? What happens if there's an oops? So addressing findings promptly, that's the most important piece. Again, keeping that line of communication open really demonstrates our commitment as a subrecipient to that compliance and that continuous improvement by developing and implementing a corrective action plan. You hear it called a CAP, a corrective action plan, the CAP. Sometimes people get it mixed up with a cost allocation plan, so don't get it mixed up. Always ask if you're not quite sure. So subrecipients can resolve those issues and really prevent any future occurrences. That's the goal, right? And maintain, again, that positive relationship with that prime recipient and funding agencies. You want to keep your risk at a minimum. So review your feedback. Make sure you read through those recommendations provided by that team, and ask those clarifying questions. They usually give you an opportunity to do that in person, or if they're doing it virtually, to ask clarifying questions. And then you also want to acknowledge receipt of that report and its contents formally, if that be an email on, with a PDF attached on letterhead. So again, keep that line of communication open. And then you want to implement those improvements. You're going to analyze the findings, right? You want to find those underlying causes of the issues and really talk to whatever staff needs to be spoken to make the necessary changes. So develop and implement an action plan to really address and identify issues or concerns. That action plan should have steps as to what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and what that outcome is going to look like and how that will solve this finding. You want to report progress. So inform your prime recipient about those steps that you're taking to address these findings, to improve compliance, and you will need to submit a formal response. Make sure you take a look at those timelines. Again, if you have any questions about it, reach out to the team. So just some best practices for maintaining compliance, and you guys can read this, and this will be provided to you afterwards. But again, just maintaining accurate and complete records, and understanding your grant requirements. I cannot say this enough, especially if you inherit something that maybe you didn't apply to originally, that you're now inheriting that work. Make sure that you read that notice of award, subscribe to relevant newsletters and updates from those grant making agencies so you can keep up to date as to what's going on. And make sure that, again, you're timely with your regular reporting and communication, that you maintain that regular communication with your prime recipient, that the reports that you submit, that you're proofreading, they align with those grant requirements. And much to what Shayna emphasized as well, you want to really foster a culture of compliance within your organization. There's a level of commitment that's required by leadership. We model behavior, right? So we want to encourage reporting, creating an environment where if there are any concerns, there's an opportunity and clear procedures to really address and resolve those issues internally before it becomes a bigger issue. My grandma used to say, don't sweep the dirt underneath the rug. It will just become a mountain. So just keeping that in mind. So let's go ahead and just look at some reporting and best practices. So what should be reported to your pass-through entity? Normally it's financial reports and those programmatic reports, documentation and reporting requirements. Again, ensure that they're accurate and complete and submitted on time with the requested backup documentation. Make sure those dates are right, things are signed, and make sure you follow that reporting schedule. Read through that. Reporting must be done at least annually, so just keep that in mind. But things can change internally depending on that sub-award. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly. Communication and coordination, again, provide regular updates and make sure that you're collaborating with the team as needed. Establish your clear metrics, use data effectively, and then again, look at those retention records. I feel as if sometimes we skip over that retention piece. But you want to make sure that you maintain all your grant related records for the required retention period. It's usually 3 years. It could be more. Ensure records are easily accessible for review and audit purposes. You want to protect sensitive information. So there's PII. If that needs to be put into a locked cabinet, make sure that you understand that, or if it needs to be encrypted in a certain way, you want to maintain that data security. So segueing into data collection and management and best practices. Again, just a lot of information here for our subrecipients. You really want to understand the purpose of your data collection. Why am I collecting this? You want to align your data collection with program goals. You want to standardize how you do that. and really ensure and maintain data quality. So train your staff, right, for accurate data entry and collection methods. Talk to them. How are you collecting data? Is it on site? What does that look like? Is it data entry? Keep records of how that data is being collected and why and where those data sources are coming from. Again, define roles and responsibilities and develop those policies and procedures for the handling of that information to ensure compliance with regulations. So again, just setting those clear metrics, defining clear performance metrics to measure success and what data walks back to that, and then using that data effectively to collect and analyze that you're demonstrating project impact and you're using those findings to inform future project planning and improvement. So common reporting challenges and solutions that we do see is that we have inaccurate or incomplete data. So again, using those standardized forms to really identify any discrepancies or missing information, delayed reporting, make sure you have those clear timelines, provide training so that there is understanding as to those requirements. Make sure that you have those detailed records and you develop process documentation and collect information and records, and then resource constraints. It's never a bad thing to leverage technology when you can. It's really explore opportunities for additional funding to really support bolstering your reporting requirements, especially in our smaller organizations. It in the long term, it would make our lives a little bit easier if we can leverage technology. So looking at the next poll question. So which of the following best describes key responsibilities of a subrecipient during the monitoring process of a subaward? Is it A, preparing financial reports and submitting them to a prime recipient? B, ensuring accuracy of programmatic performance data, managing documentation for audit purposes? C, or D, all of the above? We'll give folks here just a few minutes or a minute. And it looks great. The answer is D, answer all of the above. So all the responsibilities listed here are required and are key responsibilities of a subrecipient during that monitoring process. And please, we'll take a look at your questions here in a bit. So, all right, Jana, looks like you audit findings.
Okay, yes, audit findings. So no one wants to get, no one wants an audit finding, but when you get one, you need to take the time to review the finding thoroughly. It is an opportunity to improve your processes and prevent fraud. So, but did you know that the #1 audit finding Nevada gets revolves around defective internal controls? Just going to give you that quick tidbit. That is usually #1. Okay. So here are some tips to make remediating an audit finding easier. 1, always respond to an audit finding within 1 day. Be very responsive. Okay. Then you're going to review your internal controls for gaps. And then you're going to use you're going to use the audit finding as an opportunity to improve your processes and seal any gaps to prevent fraud. The issue of fraud comes up and your reputation as an organization that is trying to affect good is seriously diminished. And by finding on how to deal with audit findings and getting them fixed in time helps that prevent the loss of a reputation. So now we did go over audit findings in more detail in it's available in our training video library for that deep dive. So the next piece, I think, oh, here's a fun one. Here you go.
So looking at time, let's talk about sustainability. And I know this is sometimes one of the bigger pieces, especially for our subrecipients or another, our non-federal agencies, our partners. So what is sustainability? Why is it important? And when discussing federal funding, we really want to maintain operations over the long term and after the initial funding period has ended. So some key components of sustainability really include financial stability, right? We want to ensure funding is ongoing, and that resource allocation after the fact. Institutional support, you want to support your organizational capacity and infrastructure. Community engagement, we really need to engage stakeholders and beneficiaries in programs and our projects. And then those environmental pieces, minimize negative environmental impacts and promote eco-friendly practices. So when we're addressing sustainability, we want to create that plan, that sustainability plan, develop a fundraising plan, including how it will be implemented. So why does this need to be done? Again, we want to demonstrate systems, expertise, and operating infrastructure to develop on our or to deliver on our projects or programs. And these are questions that we usually have to answer when applying for funding, right? We want to demonstrate successful execution of a program similar in scope and size in the past. And if we're not able to demonstrate that, why can't we succeed now? What has changed? And then what is that long-term impact? How funding invested today will help build a program that continues to make a difference in the years to come. So when presented with those sustainability questions, sometimes we don't have all the answers, and I wanted to provide a little bit of language examples here that you could use to address some of those questions within your organization when you're responding to these questions. We have established relationships with other community partners, service providers, volunteers, funders, and other stakeholders who are committed to working with us to achieve our mutual missions through this project, ... So just keep in mind, there's always a way to frame these conversations and these responses so that you are demonstrating the ability to sustain these programs after the fact. But just touching on why it's so important, why is it crucial to have these. And again, sustainability really ensures that positive impact of a project after that federal funding or subaward funding has ceased. So you want to maximize your investment. Sustain projects, the return on investment for both the funding agency and the implementing organization, right? By ensuring that your resources are being used well and over a long period of time. You're enhancing credibility and trust through these sustainability plans by demonstrating, that you're building trust with your stakeholders, including funders, your beneficiaries, your partners, your board, whoever that might be. And then again, that we're ensuring compliance and accountability. Funders require sustainability plans to really ensure that their investment is going to lead to those lasting benefits. Demonstrating a commitment, again, to sustainability can help meet those compliance requirements. It also attracts additional funding. You have a plan. So projects that demonstrate that sustainability piece are more likely to attract additional funding from other sources because you're showing that, hey, this isn't just a one-shot deal. You can attract funding from private donors or foundations or other government agencies, again, answering those questions. And it promotes resiliency. These types of projects are better equipped to adapt to change and challenges because, again, they're sustainable. They ensure continuity and resilience in the face of external changes or pressures, whatever that looks like. And then there's also an opportunity to encourage innovation. It requires us to innovate and find new ways to deliver services and really achieve these goals. Again, fostering that continuous culture of improvement. So components of a sustainability plan, you want to look at your financial strategies and you want to know your program, you want to know your organization. You want to diversify funding sources and understand cost management, right? So where's your funding coming from? What does your budget look like? What does your detailed budget look like? Outline your expenses, understand true cost. Again, what is it costing me to manage these federal funds? And how can I implement cost-saving measures to really ensure efficient use of these various resources? Understanding your organizational capacity. So strengthen your team's ability to establish effective governance structures, right? So you want to again develop a plan to not only invest in your organization, but in your staff, professional development for your team to enhance their skills and their capacity to make sure that your organization and the infrastructure is there to support ongoing operations. programmatic sustainability. You know, there's always room for continuous improvement. And when you're evaluating your programs, you want to be reviewing your plans and using that information to really make data informed decisions. So you understand how your funding is creating that impact, what challenges you might be meeting, and really how to manage your resources well. Community stakeholder engagement is also an important piece of that. So really taking the time to foster those partnerships and collaborations and build those relationships with other organizations and within your community to really engage stakeholders both in planning, decision making, the evaluation of the program. You want to get their feedback. You want to create a space where you cultivate that community support and involvement to really ensure those long-term projects and successes. So again, investing a little bit in communication, right? What's that public relations and marketing piece look like? You know, raise awareness, build support, support transparent reporting to funders, to your board, to your stakeholders, to those within your community, and really implement these marketing efforts to be transparent, to create opportunities, again, to attract new supporters and funding sources, and really continue to build those relationships. And then part of your sustainability plan as well is that risk management piece. You want to have some contingency planning, right? You need to create or explore creating a contingency plan to really address things that you can't see, these challenges that might develop, and really implement strategies that, again, reduce risk, identify potential problems to sustainability of your projects or programming, and really help you make that impact. So, poll question number 4, which of the following strategies is most effective for ensuring the long-term sustainability of your grant-funded program? So is it relying solely on grant funding for all program expenses? B, developing partnerships with other organizations and stakeholders? C, focusing on only short-term program outcomes? Or D, minimizing communication with funders after receiving the grant? So we'll give everyone here about a minute or just a bit. And you guys are totally on point. Yeah, developing partnerships with other organizations and stakeholders. You got to get those roots deep, 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 deep into the ground. So it's difficult to rip that tree out. So fantastic. All right. So we're wrapping up here. I know there's just a couple of slides here. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had the so we wanted to go over a couple of the things that OFA offers free technical assistance to all stakeholders. So we answer questions about grants during all phases of the grant life cycle. And if we don't have the answer immediately, we will research the guidance and to give you the guidance you need to make an informed decision. Now, technical assistance includes, but it's not limited to, grant discovery, grant writing, mentorship and review, grant management and monitoring, internal controls development, reporting, and closeouts. Now, the Office of Federal Assistance is your technical assistance resource for all things federal grant related. You can email us or call us at the numbers listed below. So,
sorry, educational resources. So just briefly, again, just take a look through our website. If you have not visited us online, we have some really cool web pages, including an infrastructure hub, a page on grant resources, our grant matching program, data resources. We also host monthly consortiums to network with like-minded grant partners. Currently, once a month, we hold a workforce development, a rural development, and a K-12 education consortium meeting. So it's currently open to our USCR Nevada Federal Grant Discovery Tool users. If you're interested in signing up for that, please visit that link. If you're already signed up for the tool and would like to participate in one of these consortiums, reach out to our grant inbox or to myself directly, and I'll go ahead and get you added to those ongoing calls. And then, of course, always resources for grant education, you know, NGMA, the National Grant Management Association, Grant Mentorship Center, and Grants.gov. And again, we'll be providing all these links and information to you after the fact. So we're always here to provide support.
And some of our most popular services that we offer you at no cost is like our notice of funding data opportunity and database. You can download it. and we update it every week. You can get the weekly grant options emailed to your box every Friday. We have the grant training video library. We have Nevada's grant matching program. We have free technical assistance. And we offer several additional resources on our website, like a monthly newsletter, and that you can use to stay in tune and up to date on everything.
And last, don't forget, we are that single point of contact for intergovernmental review. So you'll see on your SF424 that check mark where it says, hey, you need to send this over for intergovernmental review. We're the person that needs to receive that as part of Presidential Executive Order 12372. Really, our job is to coordinate these in-state grant applications and really foster these relationships, collaboration, and reduce duplicative efforts and in-state competition. So if you have any questions about that, let us know. Submit your form online through our federal assistance notification form. All state agencies, you are required to report to us whether or not your federal grant application requires an intergovernmental review. So just don't forget. But yeah, next month, again, free monthly trainings every month. We appreciate everyone's attendance. And we love providing this information to everyone. Next month, training is going to be again in post-award management for allowability and cost principles. So that should be a fun one. July 25th at 10 a.m. Please sign up for the newsletter so you can keep up to date as to when that link comes out. So you can get on that training. And if you can't attend, always sign up and we'll send that information to you afterwards. But yeah, we have like 4 minutes for questions. And then we do ask you to fill out our survey after the fact. This is very important for us if you do have a moment to do our training survey, because it, one, shows that, how we can take this feedback and improve our trainings, and two, whether or not these trainings are of value to our stakeholders, so we can continue to advocate to bring these trainings to as many of you as possible free of charge. So please, if you have a moment to take that survey, we would really appreciate it. And do we have a couple of minutes for questions?
Yeah, let's